So let us sit straight, feet flat on the floor for those of you who are in chairs. If you're on a cushion on the floor, cross-legged, half lotus, comfortably with the spine straight. Swami said to those devotees gathered in the redwoods at Camp Taylor, "You may meditate on whatever you wish, but I shall meditate on the heart of a lion that gives strength." So let us take 3 deep breaths, breathing in purity and expelling all weakness. Breathe in strength and expel all low, mundane thoughts. Picture the lion in the heart. The heart is the center of our sense of identity, the center of our being. Dwell on the spiritual qualities represented by the lion. It radiates strength, fearlessness, majesty, mastery, freedom. The lion is a creature of the savannah. It has no enemies and therefore fears no one. It knows it is a match for all circumstances. Let us feel we are established in that strength. Know you are free. Strength blazes from the eyes of the lion. It illumines our heart and courses outward into the thought channels of our mind. Our veins, the sinews of our arms, hands, feet, our body is filled with strength. Our mind is established in strength. We know the self. The Atman fears nothing, not even death. We are centered in that which transcends time, space, and all that belongs to this fleeting world of matter. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Today's topic is Hear All Ye Children of Immortal Bliss. It's the 5th talk in a series on the Svetasvatara Upanishad. For those of you who are beginners, fear not. If it seems over your head, try to pluck 1 or 2 kernels and think about those that touch your heart, those statements that touch your heart. Because these shlokas are something that are meditated upon. A talk doesn't do it justice, but let us try. A quick review. We were in chapter 1, and verses 9 through 16 we'll go through quickly. Just revisit those select verses within that frame. Verse 9, Svetasvatara, the sage, says, mind and matter, master and servant, both have existed from beginningless time. The Maya which unites them has also existed from beginningless time. When all three, mind, matter, and Maya, are known as one with Brahman, then is it realized that the self is infinite and has no part in action. Has no part in action. Then is it revealed that the self is all. So here the sage reveals how he sees the world, not as a jnani, but as a vigyani, which is a higher experience, a higher attainment. The highest, of course, is nirvikalpa samadhi. That's the highest. And when one comes back, then there are levels of attainment beyond that. For a jnani who attains nirvikalpa samadhi, he or she realizes oneness with Brahman. Mind and matter, ego and universe disappear. There's no sense of individuality, just one ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss. Returning from that state, the Brahmajnani retains the memory of Brahman and now experiences the relative world differently. The Jnani sees Brahman within all forms, within you and me. All people are like so many glass houses with the light of the Atman shining within. But the glass house, the body, is something to be negated. That's jnana. On the other hand, after nirvikalpa samadhi, the vijnani sees people as glass houses. But even the glass house is an appearance of light, divine light. The vijnani sees the reality of Brahman as all forms, not within all forms. And so Svetasvatara had that experience of vijnana. Like Sri Ramakrishna, no more duality. Even when he saw the world, the vijnani sees form as Brahman. He sees no distinction between the steps to the roof and the rooftop. When he sees the world, Shakti is there, in charge. The snake is not just a snake on the road. The snake is wriggling. Form itself is a pulsation of consciousness. So how does a vijnani move through the world, we might ask? The jnani and the vijnani see everything different from us. They do nothing. The sense of I-ness doesn't exist. To them, nothing is happening. Actions proceed. Everything happens by the will of God. This reminds me of an intense experience I had my first trip to India in 1979. There is one senior Swami of the order that I really wanted to meet, who was very close to my guru, Swami Nirvanananda. And it was known that Swami Brahmananda had given him the boon of Brahmagyan because he had served him well. And when I met this Swami, everyone who met him and who was blessed by him left in tears. The experience was so tremendous because when he said the word I had never experienced that word coming from a place so vast and deep, a place of infinite power, infinite presence. To this day, I feel thunderstruck remembering that experience. To such a soul, to them nothing is happening. Actions proceed, everything happens by the will of God. In verse 11, Svetasvatara discusses fetters which bind us in ignorance, which must be loosed before self-realization is possible. Yes, we have to work on ourselves before we can have the highest experience of God. He says, no God and all fetters will be loosed. Ignorance will vanish. That's when ignorance vanishes. Birth, death, and rebirth will be no more. Meditate upon him. Here, Brahman is referred to as a pronoun, he and him, and transcend physical consciousness. Thus will you reach union with the Lord of the universe. Thus will you become identified with him, who is one without a second. In him, all your desires will find fulfillment. So what are these fetters? Well, I think we all have a clue. Those of us who have done any self-reflection, Patanjali defines them as 5 pain-bearing obstructions: ignorance, basic ignorance, seeing this world imperfectly and ourselves imperfectly, egoism, the sense of I, this I-ness that separates us from everyone else, attachment, aversion, and the clinging to life. Sri Ramakrishna describes 8 fetters according to the tantric scriptures: hatred, shame, fear, distrust or hesitation, arrogance of ancestry or caste, preoccupation with one's own good conduct, secrecy, and grief. Sri Ramakrishna said, one cannot succeed in spiritual life if one has shame, hatred, or fear. Hence, meditating on that strength of the lion is so wonderful, so therapeutic. Verse 12, the truth is that you are always united with the Lord. To just think of that gives one a thrill. That treasure is within us. Svetasvatara continues, but you must know this. Nothing further is there to know. Meditate and you will realize that mind, matter, and Maya, the power which unites mind and matter, are but 3 aspects of Brahman, the one reality. This is speaking from a very high plane. He says, but you must know this. By this is meant not anything external, but the pure essence of one's being, hidden within our heart, ever present and ready to be realized within. The Mundaka Upanishad says, the self is nearer than the nearest. Just even to meditate upon that gives one such hope, such faith, such strength. This is not a pain-hugging religion. And this is not a religion that believes you are a sinner. This is a religion that says you are divine. The sages tell us the truth is you are always united with God. Try to feel this. You can never be separated from God. You can't think, act, even move your finger without the power of God. So you are always united with the Lord, whether we know it or not. But we must know this. That is the whole of spiritual life. What you are, know that. Verse 13. Fire, though present in the fire sticks, is not perceived until one stick is rubbed against another. The self is like that fire. It is realized in the body by meditation on the syllable Om. Here, meditation is likened to the kindling of fire. So fire lies latent in wood, so also the self is unperceived by ordinary consciousness. By friction of concentration and meditation on the mantra Om, or on the mantra that your guru has given you, the mind's sensory impressions are subdued and the self stands revealed. The Mandukya Upanishad states the syllable Om, which is the imperishable Brahman, is the universe. Whatsoever has existed, whatsoever exists, whatsoever shall exist hereafter is Om. And whatsoever transcends past, present, and future, that also is Om. And we discussed just the nature of this Om in our previous classes, so I won't go into it any further. Verses 15 and 16, Svetasvatara tells us self-realization is explained by illustrations. Like oil in sesame seeds, butter in cream, water in the riverbed, fire and tinder, the self dwells within the soul. Realize him through truthfulness and meditation. Through truthfulness and meditation. Like butter and cream is the self in everything. Knowledge of the self is gained through meditation. The self is Brahman. By Brahman is all ignorance destroyed. Swami Prabhupada commentary is, as he states, Brahman, as it were, destroys ignorance. That is when the aspirant feels the grace of God. It is tangibly experienced, but self-effort is needed. So the illustrations are oil is extracted from sesame seeds by pressing it, and butter is obtained from cream by churning it. Water springs upward from the dry riverbed by shoveling away the dirt. So the self is realized by first recognizing and negating our false self, this egoism. I'm an American. I am a woman. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm this, I'm that. I'm rich. I am the CEO of a company. I hold life insurance. This I. Our physical, mental, and causal sheaths that veil the Atman. Affirming and actualizing our true nature by meditating on the self within and practicing truthfulness. One of the most important sadhanas, the practice of truthfulness. Why? We say things that we don't mean. We lie. We cover things up. We say things in jest that are not true. Practicing truthfulness. Truthfulness is satya, which satya encompasses truthfulness, honesty, goodness. And it stems from the root, which is the ultimate reality. The root word is sat, existence itself. And our teachers tell us, without satya, you cannot reach sat. It's fundamental. Without truthfulness, our being disintegrates. Our whole personality disintegrates. Swami Brahmananda reminds us of the outcome of all such spiritual practice. If you take one step toward God, he says, God comes 100 steps toward you. That's so encouraging. Without God, we could not realize God, because God is not an object to possess. God has to reveal grace, reveal his grace. And that's why the Gyanis worship the mother. She holds the key to Brahman. Swami Prabhupada said, though you are trying to concentrate, to meditate and worship day by day, you think you have not grown and that you are getting nowhere. Then suddenly, when you are least expecting it, you feel a power within yourself and around you. That's how it draws and lifts you up. And the darkness vanishes, the light shines. So that experience is available to all of us. But we have to churn the milk. We have to shovel the dirt from the riverbed. So this ends the first chapter of the Svetasvatara Upanishad. Shankara explains the first chapter describes yoga as the effective method of realizing the self hidden in the body. The second chapter deals with various yoga practices. So the gist of the text: may the mind and other organs be first directed to the self. May our sense organs be withdrawn from external objects. May our mind be directed from worldly thoughts to the self dwelling within the body, so we may contemplate the knowledge of the Atman. 3 steps. So verse 1 of the second chapter, we read, to realize God, first control the outgoing senses and harness the mind. We can get rid of our cell phone for 1 day out of the week. That would be helpful. Then meditate upon the light in the heart of the fire. Meditate, that is, upon pure consciousness as distinct from ordinary consciousness of the intellect. Thus the self, the inner reality, may be seen behind physical appearance. So the commentary, different commentators, let us understand that in this verse, the word God literally is sun, S-U-N. In the Vedas, the sun is regarded as the chief symbol of Brahman. Sunlight symbolizes divine light. So as Svetasvatara tells us, meditate upon pure consciousness as distinct from ordinary consciousness of the intellect. That's hard for us to do, but there are meditations that help us. But what does it mean? When we're conscious, we're aware that we're conscious, and we're conscious of people and objects around us. However, pure consciousness is contentless consciousness, very difficult to grasp. When we try to meditate, the mind becomes full of distractions. We think, oh my goodness, I was so much calmer before I tried to meditate. No. We see the distractions in the mind. We become more sensitive to them, the different layers of the mind's distractions. We may have a flash of concentration, but the next moment, the mind is running after some thought, something, someone. So how then to concentrate? Our teachers tell us to bring the mind back again and again. It's called pratyahara. Then what? And as we continue to meditate upon Om, or the mantra our Guru gave us, through the grace of Brahman, the realization comes. It can come in stages, and it often does, in stages. Sri Ramakrishna gave the illustration of the police sergeant who makes the nightly rounds with his lantern. These metaphors are wonderful. These examples, they help us to grasp what it is we're trying to understand, something so subtle. He said, no one sees his face, the policeman's face, but with the help of the light, the sergeant sees everybody's face, and others too can see one another. If you want to see the sergeant, Sri Ramakrishna said, you must pray to him. Sir, please turn the light on your own face. Let me see you. And in the same way, you must pray to God. O Lord, be gracious and turn the light of knowledge on thyself, that I may see thy face. So this pure consciousness is in every one of us. And with the help of that consciousness, we are conscious of everything in the universe. Thus, the self, the inner reality, may be seen behind physical appearance. says Svetasvatara. But how can the self know the self? Who can know the knower? These are legitimate questions that we must ask. In the same way, how can I see my face? I can't. I only see it through the reflection of the mirror. It's true. None of us have seen our own face to face. When we know the self, we become one with the self. Or expressed even more clearly, a knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. A Christ, a Buddha, Krishna, Ramakrishna are perfect reflections of the Atman. Our teachers tell us a divine incarnation is the finest mirror, wherein the Atman, the God within, has been reflected perfectly. And that's why meditation upon a divine incarnation is the same as meditation upon the self. Verse 2. Control your mind so that the ultimate reality, the self-luminous Lord, may be revealed. Strive earnestly for eternal bliss. So here again, the self-luminous Lord is literally the blessings of the divine Son. Strive earnestly for eternal bliss. Why strive for God? Because it concretizes our purpose in life. See, these are questions we should ask ourselves. And what realization brings? It brings freedom, bliss, liberation. Without a clear goal, we lose our drive. We may meditate one day, but not the next. We have to develop a taste for spiritual life. And when we proceed in a haphazard way, we lose our momentum and thus forfeit the reward of constant striving. This is a central secret of spiritual life. Regularity of practice is a hallmark of success in spiritual life. And this is what our teachers drum into our heads day after day. What happens when we are regular in practice, you might ask? We can feel the effects. The feeling of being centered throughout the day, the calmness that comes with that, the calmness of mind, and we develop an increased taste for meditation. To the point, we're able to gradually increase our time spent in meditation. And the operative word here is gradually. We don't jump into 5 hours a day. No. We go according to the guidance of the Guru. Great harm can come by jumping too fast. We start maybe with 10, 15 minutes, then 30 minutes, 45, 1 hour in the morning, and then gradually expand that time to both morning and evening. What happens then? When we can bookend our day with meditation. Swami Swahananda, who was the founder of this center, who was the disciple of Swami Vijnanananda, one of the direct disciples, he acknowledged we're able to feel a spiritual current throughout the day. This happens. And it can happen to anyone who is sincere and regular in their meditation practice, preferably under the guidance of a guru. Things can go wrong when we don't have a teacher, just as things can go wrong when we enter a chemistry lab without a professor there to help us. And that is why in many of our centers, including in Southern California, meditation times are at early morning, noon worship, and evening arati. And Swami Swahananda was always there in the shrine. Same with Swami Prabhupada. And same with Swami Sarvadevananda. Always the exemplar. And with this kind of regularity, what happens to the interior life of those that are adepts in meditation? Spiritual experience arises. Swami Shraddhananda is a disciple of Swami Shivananda, direct disciple of Ramakrishna. He was the former head of the Sacramento Vedanta Society, and we were very close to him. He used to visit us regularly in Santa Barbara, and I used to go up and spend time with him in the Sacramento Center, and he would give me classes. He was an adept in the mantra practice, and his beautiful book, Seeing God Everywhere, is available. If you'd like to read some of those chapters, when he's describing the experiences that come, those experiences were his. He was an adept. One time he privately revealed to me how the experience of mantra Shakti comes, mantra Chaitanya. And of course, when these kinds of conversations take place, they're never revealed to anyone during the lifetime of that person. That's just a given. These things are personal and are not meant to be aired. But he has been long since passed away. He explained, I wake up with the mantra bubbling. It bubbles up inside me. It brings me great joy. It is also there when the mind is relaxed. It can happen suddenly. Then he said, it is connected to the Ishta. It comes from the heart, the center of the universe. This is an actual experience. When we begin to center our life around the heart, our meditation practice in the heart, that experience comes. He said, meditate regularly, then experience will come. For example, I meditate 1 hour in the morning and again 1 hour in the evening, at least 1/2 hour during the noon worship and 15 minutes at midnight. But then he said, you have to wait a half an hour before you lay down. And then he disclosed the experience would leave him when he had to travel. Say, for example, when he traveled to our Santa Barbara convent for a visit. The break in the routine of his practice disrupted the continuity of the spiritual current within him and the resulting experience. But then, when the Swami would return to the Sacramento Vedanta Center and resumed his regular routine of meditation and mantra practice, the experience would again gradually return. Swami Brahmananda said, whether you like it or not, follow the routine regularly. By so doing, you will gradually create a permanent habit. Perhaps now you do not enjoy meditation, but as you form the habit, you will come to the point where you will actually feel unhappy if you do not meditate. When you reach this stage, you will know that you have advanced along the spiritual path. So it's like being deprived of a food that we need if we skip our meditation. Verse 3, with the help of the mind and the intellect, keep the senses from attaching themselves to objects of pleasure. They will then be purified by the light of the inner reality, and that light will be revealed. Again, the literal translation, may the sun bestow favor upon the senses and the mind by joining them with the self. So the aspirant prays for the favor of the sun. With years of lax mental habits, we've allowed the mind to run after sense objects. Not just years, lifetimes. But now we are trying to discipline it in order to strengthen it. And we do that by discrimination. There's a beautiful passage in the Bhagavad Gita I'd like to share with you. Second chapter, verses 62 and 63, Sri Krishna describes the wayward mind step by step. Thinking about sense objects, he says, will attach you to sense objects. Grow attached and you become addicted. Thwart your addiction, it turns to anger. Be angry and you confuse your mind. Confuse your mind, you forget the lesson of experience. Forget experience, you lose discrimination. Lose discrimination and you miss life's only purpose. So how do we discriminate to gain control over the mind? We talk to it like an adult to a child. Yes, I can get that pleasure for a few moments, but then what? So every time we exert self-control, we exert control over the temptation to check our iPhone. Every time we discipline ourselves in that way, our teachers tell us we gain energy and power within ourselves. Verse 4. The wise control their minds and unite their hearts with the infinite, the omniscient, the all-pervading Lord. Only discriminating souls practice spiritual disciplines. Great is the glory of the self-luminous being, the inner reality. So as the mind is brought under control and becomes less and less distracted, it grows its ability to concentrate on the inner light within. The mind becomes purified and the light becomes revealed. These sages tell us the essence of this verse must be felt and experienced. See, we need to meditate on these verses. The words don't mean anything unless you begin to feel and assimilate and experience. Swami Vivekananda said, "It is through the heart that the Lord is seen and not through the intellect. The intellect is the street cleaner, cleansing the path for us, a secondary worker, the policeman. He is to stop disturbances, to check wrongdoing. It is feeling that works, that moves with speed infinitely superior to that of electricity or anything else. Do you feel?" Vivekananda asks us. That is the question. If you do, you will see the Lord. It is the feeling that you have today that will be intensified, deified, raised to the highest platform until it feels everything, the oneness of everything, till it feels God in itself and in others. The intellect can never do that. Verse 5. Hear, all ye children of immortal bliss, also ye gods who dwell in the high heaven. Follow only in the footsteps of the illumined ones, and by continuous meditation, merge both mind and intellect in the eternal Brahman. The glorious Lord will be revealed to you. So this verse first appears in the Rig Veda Samhita, the oldest living scripture of the world. Then, in the 1893 World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago, Swami Vivekananda recited this famous verse to his American audience and said, "Children of immortal bliss, what a sweet, what a hopeful name. Allow me to call you, brethren, by that sweet name, heirs of immortal bliss. Yea, the Hindu refuses to call you sinners." What a thrill that affirmation must have given his American audience. This declaration of our true self-identity isn't false pride, because all people are heirs of this immortal bliss. In this verse, Svetasvatara is reminding us to turn our mind continuously and reverently toward the ultimate reality. But Swami Brahmananda cautions us by explaining that there are ascending stages of meditation. He says it is of vital importance that a man begin his spiritual, he was talking to monks, that a man begin his spiritual journey from where he is. If an average man is instructed to meditate on his union with the absolute Brahman, he will not understand. He will neither grasp the truth of it nor be able to follow the instructions. For a while he may try, but sooner or later he will tire of the struggle and give up. Then he went on to explain the various stages of realization. He said, first, in the first stage, as you meditate on your chosen ideal, think of him as bright and effulgent, and that everything shines because of his light. Think of him as living and conscious. The second stage, as you continue, he said, the form of your chosen ideal will gradually melt into the formless, into the infinite. Then will follow a vivid sense of the living presence, until finally the eye of wisdom will open and the infinite will be directly perceived. Ah, that is another realm, he said, far beyond this universe. Then the third stage. After this experience, the universe appears as nothing. The mind is dissolved and you experience Savikalpa Samadhi. The fourth stage. This leads gradually to the realization of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, absolute union with Brahman. This experience is beyond all thought and speech. There is nothing to be seen, nothing to be heard. All is infinite silence. It is beyond duality and non-duality. So our teachers, who were here in the beginning, they tell us again and again, practice, 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 meditate, meditate, meditate. My teacher used to say this again and again. Feel the presence of the living God within your own soul. By regularity of meditation, merge mind and intellect in Brahman. Verse 6. Control the vital force. Set fire to the self within by the practice of meditation. Be drunk with the wine of divine love. Thus shall you reach perfection. So this control of the vital force refers to pranayama. So at our beginning meditation, we did some slow breaths. That in itself calms the mind. When the flow of prana becomes regular and quiet, the mind becomes calm. And here the word fire represents our internal spiritual heat, tapas, which means to produce heat, to create heat. That's generated in this context through one pointed concentration and meditation on Om. So that heat is generated sometimes in the heart. One feels that. Tapas creates and burns, creates a burning that burns karmas and burns away ignorance from the aspirant's consciousness. It acts in this way. Be drunk with the wine of divine love. When the mind takes the form of Brahman, it rests in the non-dual state, which is Ananda, bliss absolute. Because Sat is the same as Chit, is the same as Ananda, Satchitananda. All three are together. Verse 7. Be devoted to the eternal Brahman. Unite the light within you with the light of Brahman. Thus will the source of ignorance be destroyed, and you will rise above karma. Be devoted to the eternal Brahman. So again, without interest, we cannot pray or meditate. And in the beginning, When the mind is easily distracted, we lose heart. We think, oh, I'm just not worthy. No, keep going. But when we have interest in God, when we desire God, then we can more easily concentrate and we progress more quickly. So we want to increase our desire for God. We have to pray for that. And as Sri Ramakrishna said, yearn for him. With yearning comes the vision. That's the whole secret. So even if we have just a little interest, that can be stimulated and increased through effort. Unite the light within you with the light of Brahman. Ignorance will be destroyed and you will rise above karma. So what we are is the sum total of all of our karmas, good and bad. In this and in previous lives, this is the doctrine of karma and reincarnation. But we need not believe in reincarnation to be a Vedanta. It's presented as a theory, not a truth, but it's a very good theory. And one that sages have actually experienced. Sometimes it comes, they see a previous life, or they see several previous lives they've had. Now the question comes, how to meditate? How do I unite the light within with the light of Brahman? So where do we meditate? Within the body, within our own consciousness. God is within our own consciousness. And there are different centers of consciousness within this body. For example, when the mind is centered on lust, greed, and power, the centers of consciousness at the navel and below are operating. When spiritual desire is awakened in our mind, the fourth center, the heart center, is activated. And with regularity, one experiences the vision of light. In the Gita, the second chapter, verse 69, Sri Krishna explains, the recollected mind, this light, beautiful. The recollected mind is awake in the knowledge of the Atman, which is dark night to the ignorant. The ignorant are awake in their sense life, which they think is daylight. To the seer, it is darkness. It's a beautifully poetic description of the difference between what a seer sees and an ordinary person. But it's so apt. It touches on the reality itself. So when we care to hear only about God, the fifth center, the throat center, or the Vishuddha center of yoga is awakened, and we become ecstatic. And what does that mean? We live, move, and have our being in God. We're immersed in God. When the mind rises to the sixth plane, known as the Adya center, the third eye, one sees God, but with a barrier, like glass in a lantern, which keeps us from touching the light within the lantern. And at the seventh center, the mind merges in Brahman. The individual soul and the supreme spirit become one. The aspirant goes into samadhi and all body consciousness disappears. So that's step-by-step stage. So let us begin at the heart center and activate that. Swami Brahmananda was asked how best to awaken the Kundalini. And he answered, I believe it can be best to be awakened by the practice of japam and meditation. The practice of japam, that is the repetition of the mantra, is specially suited to this present age, and there is no spiritual practice easier than this. that meditation must accompany the repetition of the mantra. He then also stated, through the grace of the Guru, everything can be had, even the knowledge of Brahman, but this grace is not easily obtained. You must work hard for it. Begin now, he said. Devote yourself to spiritual disciplines. Plunge into the very depth of your soul. Establish a definite routine for the practice of japam and meditation, and follow it with unwavering tenacity, whether you like it or not. And so let us end this talk by trying to enter our own soul. This is a ahangraha meditation, an expansive meditation. So you all know the routine: to sit straight, feet planted on the floor. Sit a little forward in your chair, or if you're on the floor, on a cushion to keep the spine straight. And hands held loosely, like Swami Vivekananda is holding his, the right upturned palm resting in the left upturned palm. And let's begin by taking in 4 deep breaths, breathing in purity and exhaling all impurity. Send waves of peace to the north, south, east, and west, for without outer peace, there can be no inner peace. Within the city of Brahman, which is the body, there is the heart. And within the heart, there is a cave. Gently place the mind and the heart. Approach the cave entrance and enter. There, deep within, shines your chosen ideal, the size of a thumb, seated on the luminous lotus of the heart. Its body is radiant, emanating pure consciousness, loving consciousness, which is light. Allow your mind's eye to rest on the eyes of your beloved, who has experienced the highest realms of consciousness. Your beloved is smiling, full of compassion. Now allow your mind's eye to pass from the eyes to the mouth, which has uttered the one truth in so many ways. Bring your mind's eye down the form to the lotus feet, at which you place your heart's desire. Then up again to the head, and rest on the full luminous form. Fill the cave with the luminosity of your beloved's loving compassion. Allow the form to dissolve in the effulgence of 1,000 suns, as it fills your chest cavity with the light of loving consciousness. It then rises to your throat and head and extends downward into your lower limbs, your feet and toes. Feel your body as a vessel of loving consciousness, radiating the light of your chosen ideal to every pore of your body. Let this light extend outward and fill the room, pervading everyone and everything in the room. Let it extend outward into the street, into the city, the mountains and valleys and beyond. Let it cover the world and embrace all whom you love, strangers whom you have yet to meet, and those whom you fear or dislike. Let the light of your beloved embrace all and extend beyond into space. The light of your Atman is one with Brahman, infinite, indestructible, all-pervading, loving consciousness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all.